Margaret, at the risk of being politically incorrect, tá cothú mór an joch a bheith agam, tá rééis na ddíospóireachta seo, agus but what in a Minister, I'm tempted at the risk of being politically incorrect, saying I'm looking forward to a drink after this debate and this long day, because there's nothing wrong with taking a drink. And what we're talking about here is the abuse of drink, and I think that's very important, and to put it in perspective. And we are, for the first time, addressing alcohol as a public matter, and I very much welcome that, given that the abuse of alcohol is responsible for, and I hate the word approximately when we're talking about deaths, and 90 deaths per month in our country, and that the accident and emergency departments are overwhelmed with drink-related problems and illnesses, not to mention the intergenerational effects of alcohol, violence, assault and domestic violence. And then we have the economic effects, costs, and back in 2004, and the price has gone up since, the CEO of the Health Research Board provided figures on the economic costs, and at that point in time it was 2.39 billion in combined health and crime-related costs, and so on, 527 million in lost economic output. And you, in your opening statement, Minister, clarified that the overall purpose of the bill is to contribute to the reduction of the harmful, it's important, the harmful use of alcohol, or the harmful result of the abuse of alcohol. And indeed, the steering group put this, gave a figure on this, to reduce alcohol consumption to 9.1 litres per capita, representing a 23% reduction over the 2010 figures. And I welcome the bill in what it's trying to do. I'm going to come back to what the reservations I have. And I welcome that the bill targets a number of very specific areas, and I have no difficulty with that. Price, although I have a guarded opinion in relation to the minimum price and whether it will achieve what it's supposed to, but I give it a guarded welcome. The availability, the marketing, certainly the advertising, I welcome without hesitation, and it certainly doesn't go far enough. I'm going to come back to that as well, and the labelling. The minimum price, as has been said by many speakers, seeks to target cheap alcohol consumed by those most at risk. And the estimated value to society of bringing that in, if we extrapolate from the Sheffield research, and I do so with a caveat, because it's difficult to extrapolate, and also because there will be no increase in the minimum until after a 3-year period, and it's not clear whether it's going to be linked to the consumer price index or adjusted for inflation, but the estimated saving is 1.7 billion. So these are important matters to be considered. I also very much welcome the ban on advertising near schools, in parks, playgrounds, public transport, and the prohibition on price-based promotions and so on, and particularly the ban on any advertising on children's clothing. I welcome Section 21, which allows you, Minister, the power to regulate, restrict the sale and supply of alcohol products, and so on. I have a certain difficulty in relation to where we're going about alcohol and the serious nature of that in our country. And there's a certain hypocrisy, not on your part, Minister, but generally on all of our part, because, as I said, in jest, half in jest, but serious, I will enjoy a drink tonight. There's a certain level of hypocrisy in the way we talk about alcohol and how to deal with it, while not acknowledging that we've utterly failed to treat the reasons why people drink in the first place. Now, I don't expect you to capture all of that in one piece of legislation, but people drink for many reasons, and those reasons we're not tackling whatsoever. And indeed, we don't lead by example, and when we celebrate, and when the former President of the States came to Ireland, we all delighted in the fact that he was seen drinking a pint of Guinness. And when we go out, it's very difficult to get a cup of tea at regular functions, much easier to get wine and so on. And in this legislation, we're utterly ignoring off-licences, which are allowed to be as attractive as possible. And what captures the difficulty for me is the attempt by this bill, particularly initially before it was changed in the Seanad, to have physical barriers erected in shops, as if that was the problem. as if going into the Super Value, which is near me, which has changed its name now, and seen drink, that people are going to... I don't accept that value. I don't accept that logic whatsoever, that somebody will buy drink just because it's near the butter and that it has to be segregated, while just down the road, yards away, we have an off-licence, which, as I speak, has a sign up saying 2 bottles of Buckfast for €20. So, in its initial stages, putting up a physical barrier in small shops in rural areas was simply unacceptable and was utterly failing to deal with the problem of alcohol abuse, and targeting an outlet that wasn't responsible for the alcohol abuse and not targeting those responsible for the alcohol abuse. And I'm very familiar with the legislation that has been brought in repeatedly over the years and never implemented. It is an offence for a publican to serve somebody who's intoxicated. It's an offence to drink on the streets of Galway. We brought in bylaws prohibiting drinking on the streets of Galway. And immediately what happened? We had to make exceptions because it's a city of culture, which I'm very proud of. It's a bilingual city. But it's also a city of festivals. And the pressure group said we need to allow drink on the streets. And so we have bylaws that mean nothing. The guards told us they couldn't enforce the law because they didn't have the authority to confiscate and destroy. And so we brought in the bylaws to allow the guards to confiscate the drink and destroy it. And then exceptions were brought into that, and lack of number of police on the ground. So you can see the level of duplicity and hypocrisy that's going on here. So it's okay for a festival to drink to excess during the races. We couldn't possibly stop people in Galway from drinking on the streets during the races. But we're going to tell the young people, don't drink. So I have a certain level, I have a difficulty with the hypocrisy of that on a societal level in relation to how we do it. And I am very glad that changes have been made in relation to the physical barriers, because I certainly would not have voted for this legislation, even though there are many good sections in it. Tomorrow on the public accounts, we're going to debate the dormant accounts fund. A significant and substantial amount of the dormant funds account have not been used. Can you imagine that? Funds set up to deal with disadvantaged areas, to help people with education, very specific points, and underused completely. And we will be examining the reasons for that tomorrow. No review has been carried out in relation to that. There's one example, with the emphasis that those funds should have been for young people, targeted those in needs, all underfunded. We don't have enough community centres, and we don't have enough alternative things for our young people. So if we're seriously interested in dealing with alcohol, it's not by banning it. It's not by putting up physical barriers. It's not by going back to the prohibition days in America. It's by beginning to grow up as a society. Alcohol is not bad. In moderation. In moderation. The abuse of alcohol is a very significant problem in our society, which we have condoned on every single level. And young people are way too clever for us, and they see our hypocrisy. And when I go home to talk to my son's friends and my sons, I will be met with that hypocrisy. And they'll go into a pub and they will get their shots. And the level of over-drinking is absolutely astounding. And that's what we need to deal with. Gur míle maith agad, leas ceann comhairle.